Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are doing a continuation on the good, the bad, and the reworked for all of the classes in Space Marine 2. We've already covered the Tactical Assault Vanguard and Bulwark, so feel free to go and check those videos out either before or after this one if you want to follow them in order or not. We're still gonna check out the Heavy as well after. We're working our way down the whole thing here. If you are new here, I just want to say in advance that these videos are all unscripted. I did that intentionally. It's not just laziness because I want to completely cut out the bias of me sitting down and writing out a whole script and then sticking to my guns. I wanted to just be able to go off the top of my head and rant and ramble about what I feel is good and what I feel is bad and what could kind of change. There are sometimes I kind of hit a wall where I'm like, oh, maybe this would be better if I pre-wrote this out so that we had like more things to talk about, but these videos go on for a really long time already, so I'm trying to cut them down and just kind of go through super quick, but I don't want to also like rush through it super fast. So we're gonna get into this here. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of go over the weapons super briefly, and then we're gonna move over into the meat and potatoes of the perk tree and the ability and just go over them and kind of talk about what is good and what is bad and what could kind of change. And of course there's like a ton, you know, I could make an entire video on just in general what needs to change, and I know a lot of people feel the same way as well, but it's not really about that. We're just going to kind of go over the perks and things like that because it would take forever to talk about everything that needs to change in Space Marine 2 to make this like an ideal game. But anyways, so let's go ahead and get into the primaries here. I think that the sniper is very lucky and has very good primary coverage. Of course, it is a sniper class, so you'd think like you'd mainly want to use the bolt sniper or the las fusil, and you would generally be right, but I do really love the sniper class for the fact that you can play a bolt carbine and make it work very well and very easily, and it's very viable. Maybe it's not the most ideal way to play the sniper, but it is nice that you have the options. The options are nice, and that's what a lot of classes are kind of missing out on, is that we don't need the most viable builds of all time on all the different classes, but the options are nice so that there's a new way to play, you know, even if it's not the best performing, just new and invigorating ways to kind of like mess around and play and have fun, because that is what this should be about. You know, it's a video game at the end of the day where it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be like boring and tedious. You know, they definitely need to find a way to kind of like keep it fresh so that people want to like come into the you know, the fandom, get welcomed into 40k, and then have like a reason to stay and play, you know. But anyways, that's not what this is about. So the sniper does have really good coverage. We got the Stalker bolt rifle here, the Instigator bolt carbine, we got the bolt sniper rifle, we got the regular bolt carbine, which is like one of the most versatile weapons that I could even name on this game. Just it literally switches from like an SMG to like a marksman rifle, and so you can't really get more versatile than that, I guess, other than like the combi melta maybe. And then we've got the awesome las fusil. So yeah, lots of awesome ways to play. There is something that I'll talk about in the perk tree in regards to this in a little bit when we do get there, but I think as far as primaries go, it doesn't really get too much better than this. I think they really hit the mark with what you're able to kind of work with as the sniper, depending on if you want to play like a more run and gun style with the bolt carbine, or sit back and focus on headshots with the heroic bolt sniper rifle. You know, you kind of have your pick of the draw there. And for secondaries, I think they also kind of hit the mark here. It is unfortunate that we don't have the plasma pistol, but, you know, not every class can have it. I think that it's really good to not have it on some classes, because if you just had it on every single class, then a plasma pistol user would just always use it on every single class, and it wouldn't really encourage playing in different ways. And I think that that's a big thing with this game, is that you need to kind of push yourself to want to try new things and play in different ways. I think that all of these are good options for the sniper class. The Inferno pistol can be very solid to get rid of, you know, minorists that are bothering you if you're doing Tyranids. It's also got really good stagger, so it's good for taking out enemies that are doing reinforcement calls. You can use it on the tumor meatballs on Chaos to stop their massive attack chains and things like that as well. Super useful. It's pretty good paired with like a longer range weapon like the bolt sniper, so that you've got kind of like some long ranged, you know, you've got like this for close range and you've got that to kind of do the long range action for you. So useful that way. My favorite for the sniper is the heavy bolt pistol, firepower or ammo variant personally, but that's the same for most classes for me. so that doesn't really change. If you've been around the channel for a little bit or you've seen my videos, yeah, you kind of already get the gist there. So that's kind of my favorite. I think this is just like an all-around useful weapon. It's great CHP, it's got decent ammo economy. If you take the ammo economy variant, it does a shit ton of damage and gun strike damage if you take the firepower variant and all that, and it's got really good gun strike damage as well. And then we've got the bolt pistol. I do actually think the heroic bolt pistol is the best for the sniper, and we'll get into that as well. People who are veterans on the class or just know about the sniper perks in general will know why already, but we will cover that later. The other variants are decent too. You could go ahead and take the accuracy variant. The firepower variant is good, or just the ammo reserve variant if you just feel yourself running out of ammo a lot. But if you're going to take the ammo economy variant, I would just take the heroic at that point. It does have like a lot of less ammo reserve, but you can make this stretch pretty far, and it's really good. It recovers a lot of CHP and things like that. So I think secondaries are also in a pretty good spot. Nothing really to complain about there. Power Gladius is probably the place where most people would expect me to complain, but I actually do think that the sniper is in a really good place by just having the combat knife. It would be really nice to see a weapon in like year 3 or something like that that is kind of combat knife adjacent, obviously not ripping the combat knife right off, but a lot of people wanted like Thunder Claws, you know, something that was smaller that you could like kind of dual wield and like kind of like attack fast and hit with a flurry of blows. That kind of weapon could fit really nice here, and Tactical could also get it. If you watched the Tactical video that I did on this, one of my biggest gripes on that with the melee was just being locked to only 2 weapons. I think that having 3 melee weapons is the gold standard of having options. Of course, more the better, but at some point eventually it does get oversaturated, but I think 3 or 4 is a really, really good spot, and that's why Vanguard feels so good, is because it's got 3 weapons. I just feel like having 3 just gives you that little bit much more. It just hits like a break point for my brain that is like, oh, you've got really good options, you know? But just having 1 is kind of pooey, but the combat knife and the Power Gladius at least are very good to use and very, very versatile and useful. Unfortunately, I do personally think that the Power Gladius is like the only variant that I really run. I think that it's the best. If you're a block user, you can definitely use that for the little bit of extra oomph, but I'm not really a block user. I'm not super versed. I did use block weapons mainly for a while and practice with them, but I still didn't really like them as much. I'm kind of like a balanced user, which is why the Power Gladius is that much more powerful in my hands, because I'm very tuned into the balanced defense style. So, but any of these can be useful. It's just, I don't know. You know, you already have such strong single target damage with any of the sniper classes with headshot damage and things like that you don't really want to use the fencing version. This thing's really only good for really fast attack speed against one enemy at a time, as you can see in the cleaving potential. The balanced one does have good cleaving potential, allows for a lot more horde clear, and it also has more strength to it. And, you know, you don't really feel the speed that much. You kind of do, actually. 9 speed is a significant amount of speed compared to 7.5. But, you know, you definitely get used to it. And then block, obviously, is a lot slower, has a little bit better cleaving potential, but it hits like a fucking truck. So I think that, yeah, personally, for me, the best of both worlds, or the best of all worlds, is the Power Gladius, because you also get the heroic ability with it. You know, I think it's just a no-brainer, kind of, as long as you have it unlocked. So it does kind of suck that you are locked to just 1 weapon and 1 variant. That is just obviously the best, but it is what it is. You've got so many good options as the primary. I feel like you're pretty spoiled already, and that is the main focus. This is just kind of as a fallback, as a safeguard. So it's not really the end of the world to me that the sniper only has 1 melee weapon, whereas for the tactical, I complain about that as a main point, because I just feel like the tactical is a man of versatility, but he's locked to only 2. I think he should have 3 melee weapons. He should have the power axe, but regardless, this isn't about him, so we'll move on. He's got his own dedicated video. So we're going to get into the ability here. We've got Camo Cloak. The Camo Cloak camouflage hides you from enemies until your next attack breaks it. That attack will deal 25% more damage, and your starting perk is that headshot damage increases by 10%. So overall, very useful. Not really any complaints there. I don't know. I feel like the starting perk headshot damage increases by 10% could definitely be reworked into something different. Other classes seem to have it a little bit better, but also you would kind of need that headshot damage to move its way somewhere else, whether it be in like a perk or a weapon skill tree or something, because that 10% actually does allow you to hit some decent breakpoints, especially if you combine it with marksmanship so that you're getting 20% headshot damage. Yeah, it definitely helps you kind of hit some pretty nasty breakpoints, especially with the heroic bolt sniper. So I don't really know if I want to get rid of that. I don't want to talk too prematurely and be like, oh, it's just a basic damage modifier. Get rid of it and give me something else. It would be really nice to have something a little bit more unique. But since the sniper's class is all focused about headshot damage, and my big thing is making sure that perks have something to do with the way the class is supposed to be played, and the builds within it, it would kind of be hypocritical of me now after like 4 or 5 videos of doing this to say that that one should go. So that one maybe we'll let slide for now. It's a little bit up in the air. But let's go ahead and get into some perks. So block break, shots will penetrate enemy block stances, dealing 50% of the usual damage. I think this perk is fairly solid. It doesn't really give you much to work for. A lot of the talk in my previous videos is making sure that there is like an incentive, there's a prerequisite, so there's something that you need to do to meet the criteria to activate a benefit for a certain amount of time so that you have, you know, some stress to make use of it in that time, and then, you know, remembering to re-up it as much as you can. Block break doesn't give you that, it just gives you this stat, but it is very useful. So I will say that it's super useful for a sniper, especially when you've got Tyranid warrior bone swords that just put their swords over their face and charge at you, you know, with reckless abandon, and there's like nothing you can really do about it except for wait for them to get up to you. At least block break mixed with the bolt sniper rifle, there's a perk in there that gives you another 20 or 25%. At least you can do something about it. So kind of niche. Not the best perk ever. I think that it could be changed to something a little bit more useful, or just like something that kind of like makes it so that you have something to do for it. Like, I don't know, maybe shooting an enemy that has a block up activates so-and-so, you know, something like that instead, so that instead of penetrating your shot through the blocked stance, you still have an incentive to shoot them while they're in a blocked stance, but it just gives you something else. I'm not really sure. But it is still a good perk, and for right now, since it's probably not going anywhere anytime soon, it's not the worst pick ever. We got Melee Mastery. This is one that I do have a pretty big bone to pick. Melee damage increases by 20% against Majoris level and higher enemies. For one, the sniper isn't really centered around melee in the first place. Don't get me wrong, this is a good perk, and I take this perk in this row most of the time, but I still think that it's bad. It's just a basic damage increase. I think that this shouldn't be in the perk tree. I think all the damage needs that you should have to play the highest content in the game should be met within a more in-depth weapon skill tree, and this should be something else, like after you headshot kill a Majoris, you deal 20% more increased damage or something like that. You know, give me something to work with and then give me the buff, and then that makes it more enticing, more invigorating to kind of like remember to do and play. Makes it a little bit more complicated than just saying, here's 20% more melee damage, go and have fun. Go play in the backyard, kid. So moving on, we've got Medicae Adept. You revive squad members 30% faster. This is one of those perks that a lot of people hate on in the community because it basically tries to reward your teammates for playing bad. You know, you don't really want your teammates to go down, period, but it is one of those perks that you are happy to have when you do have it. It's not bad, but I think that having the 20% is more useful, and that says a lot because I already think this perk is bad and should just be abolished from the perk tree in general. And, you know, yeah, this is just a bad starter lineup, I think. I struggle to really find use. Like, I think I find most use out of block break, but only when I'm using the bolt sniper. And if I'm not using that, I'm using melee mastery. And we've already covered why I don't think that's good. So not a really good starter lineup for the sniper, in my opinion. Then we go to high capacity. The maximum amount of ammo you can carry increases by 10%. This perk is pretty fucking doo-doo because it doesn't even work on your best weapon, the heroic sniper. Or maybe it does, but if it does, it maybe only gives you one shot if you hit a certain breakpoint, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure this doesn't give you anything. And for any other sniper, 10% isn't really a lot. You know, 10% of almost nothing is, you You know, would you ever believe it? Almost nothing. So it's really only good to run this if you're running like a carbine build, bolt carbine or instigator. You do get some value out of this for sure, but I think that there are better options. But that's kind of like the point. We'll kind of get into that in a second here. The next perk, Vantage Point, remaining stationary for 2 seconds increases your ranged weapon damage by 20%. This one is decent. I think this is a pretty gold standard perk because, again, you know, that you've heard a million times in my other videos that I do for this, it gives you something to do, something to entice you into activating it by remaining stationary for 2 seconds, and then gives you your reward for being a good little boy. So definitely good, very useful. I like that perk. Adaptability, reloading while having low ammo or manually activating camo cloak increases melee damage by 25%. This one I really only think is good for the ambush predator build for the sniper, where you're running melee damage perks, because manually activating camo cloak, it gives you the extra little 25% for 10 seconds, helps you hit some damage breakpoints there, mixed with the power of Gladius. If you get it charged up with perfect dodge charges, and then you do a shadow stab with adaptability and ambush and tactical ambush, you do a lot of damage. You can almost one-hit kill Terminus enemies with that. It's really hard to set up and it's super niche, but damn, when you do it, it is good. So this next line right here is the one that we're going to talk about pretty heavily. I'm going to try to go through it pretty quick, but this one definitely needs some addressing. This sucks. To keep it simple, this fucking sucks. Having your perk entirely tied to what primary you're using. So for those who don't know, or if you don't play sniper, we've got Iron Grip here. Weapon spread and recoil are reduced by 20%, and range damage increases against Terminus level enemies is increased by 15%. For bolt sniper rifles and stalker bolt sniper rifles. Only for those. That's fucking stupid. I think that that should be abolished, and it should at least be something for everything, you know, like a universal utility perk. You shouldn't have an entire line of perks locked to your primary. I think that's absolutely absurd, because the next one, Dexterous Hands, bolt carbines reload 20% faster and their weapon spread and recoil are reduced by 15%. Note, bolt carbines, only for bolt carbines. Next one, Las Fusel. Killing more than one enemy with a shot from Las Fusel restores its charge by 1. Is it a good perk? Yeah, fucking sure it is, but it locks it until level what, like 20 something? And like, that's where your Las Fusel perk goes? If you're a Las Fusel main, why would you want a Prestige when your fucking only good Las Fusel focused perk is all the way down here? That's BS. And I have played a lot of Sniper. Sniper is like my second favorite class of all time. So I feel like I've got a decent hill to stand on here where I say that this is absolute bullshit. They should be universal perks that give you new ways and new fun ways to play and activate different abilities. You shouldn't just simply slap a perk on top of a weapon and say that's it. Because now you're basically forced to use stalker bolt rifles and bolt snipers for this bar, and then when you get down here, oh sure, we'll throw in bolt carbines. Now you can use these or these. And then finally, you get access to the Las Fusel perk. So if you're a Las Fusel player, you're just getting dunked on until you get like max level. And that's BS. It shouldn't be perk locked like that. That sucks. So anyways, we'll move on from that. Team perks, I do feel like the team perks are pretty good for the sniper. They're in a decent spot. Marksmanship, headshot damage is pretty selfish because not a lot of other classes. I mean, I guess all classes make really good use of headshot damage, but some classes make better use of it than others. Like if you have a plasma incinerator heavy, he's not really going to be making a lot of use out of this because he's going to be splash damaging everything and not getting headshot damage. So that loses a lot of value, literally a third of its value there. And say you've got a whole team of assault and bulwark players. Yes, they're going to get use out of this because they're going to be always aiming for headshots, because you're always wanting to aim for headshots whenever you can in Space Marine 2. But because they don't have primary weapons, they're not making as use of this as something like a tactical could make, or a heavy bolter heavy, or a Vanguard with a marksman carbine or something like that, you know? So it's kind of one of those perks where you need to know, you need to be pretty confident with the team that you're running to really make the most value out of it. But yes, it will generally always get value for the team. It does suck though that there's no like prerequisite for it, so I'm just gonna lightly throw that in there because that's kind of the focus of like every one of these videos, is that there needs to be more activating things to like make it interesting, instead of just saying here's 10% more headshot damage, here's 20% more melee damage. You know, it's kind of boring. Precision targeting, weapon spread is reduced by 25%, and range damage against extremist and terminus level enemies is increased by 15% for all squad members. I think this perk is in a really good spot. I think, I think we'll just leave that at that. I think it's in a pretty good spot. I think having weapon spread reduced by 25%, I guess this is also a little bit more situational. I think certain classes get a lot more use out of this than other ones. Again, mainly to do with Assault and Bulwark, who don't have major primary weapons. I think Tactical makes a lot of good use out of this. Depending on the gun, Heavy, actually not really even depending on the gun, because even a Plasma Incinerator could make decent use of this because of the increased damage. So even Heavy makes really good use out of this, and Vanguard makes really good use out of this. It just doesn't really complement the melee-centric classes of Space Marine 2, because the damage that you get for the increase is range damage, and they already do such little range damage that every single time that you have an Assault or a Bulwark, you are just cutting 33% or 66% value off of this perk from what it could be doing if you had other teammates. So bear that in mind. Then we go ahead and grab Squad Renewal. Why am I saying grab Squad Renewal like this is a build guide? But then we go ahead and look at Squad Renewal. Headshot Kill restores ability charge by 10% for any squad member. This is the gold standard for team perks and perks in general. You've got something that triggers the ability in a headshot kill, and then you get rewarded for it, and it benefits every single class all the time, because every single class has an ability, and every class is always looking to re-up their ability after they use it. So super useful. Even Assault and Bulwark can make use of this, because you can headshot Minoris very easily and it still counts. It's not locked to only Majoris. Yeah, so super useful. This is kind of like the gold standard team perk. Purification, do I need to even say anything about it? This is the best perk for Sniper, period. Getting rid of all of your negative status effects and restoring all your contested HP. This will keep you alive for an unnecessary amount of time. Yeah, we'll just skim past that one. Efficient Readiness, Camo Cloak increases movement speed by 20%, and manually activating Camo Cloak automatically reloads ranged weapons. This is good, but it gets overshadowed by Purification very hard. Same with Renewal. A headshot kill restores Camo Cloak's charge by 15%. This is disgusting synergy if you pair both of these together, but again, you're missing out on so much survivability and sustain in the form of Purification that, and you also really don't need that. 25% is a lot. You can get enough out of just having this and have it benefit the entire team, and then have Purification for survivability. So that's another main point that we've talked about in the other videos, is basically how this also sucks when you've got one perk that significantly overshadows all of the other perks in the line, that it doesn't really reward you for dipping into other perks and trying new builds, because getting rid of Purification is just fucking stupid. So either Purification needs a nerf. I know a lot of people, especially Sniper mains, probably don't want to hear that, but I think either Purification needs a nerf, or these perks need reworks and need to be stronger or something, because there's zero incentive to be taking these over Purification, especially when, like, the only incentive to take Renewal over Purification would be if you're not running Squad Renewal. But why would you not run Squad Renewal? I guess the only reason you wouldn't run Squad Renewal is if you're running Marksmanship, and I mean, Marksmanship is very niche to really only be super useful to you, that all the time pretty much. I'd rather run Squad Renewal and Purification. So where's the incentive to really play in a different way? Which is what really kills the builds in this game. Next up, we got Guardian Protocol. When you revive a squad member, your Camo Cloak hides you and the squad member for 5 seconds without spending a charge. So that is good. It's a little bit niche. Yeah, it's one of those perks that rewards you for your team going down and playing bad. I know a lot of people kind of have that mentality, but it's kind of tricky. I try to stay out of that mentality, because these perks can see good use and even save runs at sometimes. That, yes, you guys are right, all of you really hard-ass pro players, you know, you don't like perks that reward when your team plays bad, but sometimes you can't help it. And especially if you're playing with randoms and you're hopping in and it's like a very winnable match, but your team is playing poorly and you're getting stagger locked by extremist packs and there's nothing you could do, you know, it's you kind of put them in between a rock and a hard place. You know, I don't know. I think Sniper support build is very useful by having like Medicae Adept over here, and then also having, you know, Guardian Protocol. You can kind of make like a really good support survivability Sniper and still do really good offensively. And I don't know. I think that that's pretty cool. I like that the Sniper has a few different decent builds to play. Like you could build the Ambush Predator build, the melee-centric one. You can build a Cloak range damage one with targeted shot. You can build kind of more of a team support with Medicae Adept and Guardian Protocol. So I still have respect for this perk, even though I know a lot of people don't, because of, you know, what it means for your team, but it's whatever. Targeted shot, first ranged attack that breaks camo cloak, deals 75% more damage. I absolutely love this, and I also love tactical ambush because they both incentivize you to play in a different way. This one focuses on setting up a melee strike after a cloak, and this one focuses on a ranged attack. So this is what I love to see, having perks that make it so that you like build different ways. Maybe we could get rid of Guardian Protocol and move it to a different line with other support perks and make it so that when you activate Camo Cloak, you do increased equipment damage, like 75 or 50% increased equipment damage, which would really synergize well with Pattern of Excellence. If you've got a Melt-A-Bomb, you know, you could set up a Melt-A-Bomb stealth explosion build where you go into Camo Cloak, run into battle, throw a Melt-A-Bomb, trigger it, do 50% increased Melt-A-Bomb damage, blow everything up, and then rock Pattern of Excellence to keep on re-upping that. That would be pretty strong, but that would be a really cool way to have this line. Could you not agree? You know, you basically would choose. Do you want to focus on doing massive range damage outside of Cloak? Do you want to focus on doing massive melee damage modifiers or equipment damage? You know, that would be an even incentive depending on the build that you're going for, and that's what this game needs a lot of. So moving on, we've got Persistence. When Camo Cloak deactivates, you take 20% less health damage. Do not lose control upon taking heavy hits. It cannot be knocked back for 10 seconds. This is just an on-command Conviction perk. Super useful. Conviction already is really good. I think Persistence takes that a step further and allows you to have it in your hands, which I think makes it even more powerful. You can always trigger it whenever you want. And yeah, I think that it's just really good. We got Lingering Concealment. After performing an attack that breaks Camo Cloak, you remain hidden for 2 seconds. I think that this gets overshadowed by perks like Persistence and Ambush, but I do think it's a solid perk. I think I'd like to see it be a little bit more useful. I think Lingering Concealment, we could probably get rid of Efficient Readiness, in my opinion, and combine it with Lingering Concealment. So what if either this perk here also allowed you to have the 2 seconds after leaving Camo Cloak, and then, you know, or if Lingering Concealment basically made it so that you move 20% faster. So like, what if you entered Camo Cloak, you got the 20% damage buff, and you also, after you break it, you still have 2 seconds and you get 20% more movement speed for 2 seconds, allowing you to relocate, instead of breaking that up into 2 perks. I think that would be really good, and that would make way to add something more useful, maybe over in this line, to maybe counteract the meta of Purification. I think that would be good. And then we've got Ambush. When your Camo Cloak deactivates, it startles and slows down nearby enemies for 10 seconds. They'll temporarily lose control and get knocked back. I like this perk. It's really only good, in my opinion, with the Ambush Predator setup if you're doing melee damage. So if you run Tactical Ambush plus you are a melee perk over here, Adaptability, you can get a lot of value out of that with a Shadow Stab and all of that jazz. I do think it's in a good spot. I do like this perk. I just think a lot of people don't really run melee-centric snipers. But it is very viable. I'm going to make a build on it. I did try to make a build on it before, but I played horribly, so I actually scrapped that video because it was god-awful. We did beat the match and everything, but it was pretty bad, so I want to actually make a video on it. This was also like way back. This was like one of my first videos that I made ever. But I do want to circle back to that and actually showcase how strong that can be. And then we got the signature. We got Evasion. After a perfectly timed dodge, Camo Cloak automatically activates without spending a charge. See, this is, I think, a gold standard. I love the idea of signatures that impact the way your ability works in major ways. This isn't like super major. It just kind of gives you another way to you know, activate your Camo Cloak without actually spending a charge. And it also works really well with the Power Gladius, so you can do a really good, like, tactical ambush build, because I think that you also can proc regular ambush off of this, because ambush doesn't work when you go into Cloak, it's only when you leave Cloak. So you could basically evade and use that 5 seconds to get in somewhere, and then ambush can, when your Cloak goes down, ambush procs, and then you've got tactical ambush if you do it, you know, if you do an attack fast enough, assumably. 5 seconds isn't a lot of time to work with, to be fair, but could be a good way to squeeze some extra value out of your cloaks there. Could maybe be a little stronger. I think maybe 10 seconds would be good. Well, no, that might be a little much. 10 seconds is a lot for something as easy as just hitting a perfectly timed dodge, but for some reason 5 seconds seems way too little and 10 seconds seems way too much. So I don't know, maybe we meet a middle ground. 7.5 seconds would be maybe the money spot. I don't know. Emergency Override. When you receive lethal damage, Camo Cloak automatically activates without spending a charge and you become invulnerable for 5 seconds. This one I'm going to let slide a little bit. I gave the Vanguard a really hard time for their perk version of this, but at least this one gives you another thing with it in becoming invulnerable for 5 seconds. I don't think that the Vanguard has that luxury. This one also has a bigger cooldown, I think. But still, I think the message stays the same. I wish that this wasn't just, you know, you just basically, when you would die, this saves you. And then you get a little bit of invulnerability. I think that there should be something that like triggers this or like gives you more to do while you're in invulnerability instead of just saving you. I just feel like saving you from lethal damage isn't, like, I guess it is strong, you know. I'm here complaining, saying that literally saving you from death isn't enough value, but like in that 5 seconds it should like give you something, or like give you like a damage, you know, a damage buff, which I guess it kind of does because it automatically activates Camo Cloak, which innately gives you a damage buff. So maybe that is actually it. Now that I think about it, you know, you go into Camo Cloak, you get 5 seconds of invuln, you get your damage buff from being in Camo Cloak. This is a fairly solid perk, and 180 seconds is a decently long cooldown to make sure that you survive to proc this again. So it is kind of nice that this isn't like a one-time thing. So maybe this isn't a good spot. Maybe I'm just over-analyzing. And then we've got Pattern of Excellence. I think Pattern of Excellence is the best in the signature. I think that with the mixed with the Heroic Bolt Pistol that we talked about earlier, and why I think that's the best weapon for, or the best secondary for Sniper, this is the reason, and solely the reason. Performing 3 consecutive headshots restores equipment charge by 1, and the cooldown is only 30 seconds. That means 30-second grenades, crack grenades, melt-a-bombs. Melt-a-bombs are really what we're looking for here, because 30-second melt-a-bombs is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And you get so much value out of your melt-a-bombs because you get to go into Cloak, you get to run right into battle without worries of being attacked, really, unless you catch a stray, and then you drop a melter right in the heat of battle, and then you can blow it up and then get another one in 30 seconds. You're joking, man. You're joking. Which is why I think it'd be really cool to have like a perk here that complements equipment damage, even if it was like 25%, because I know melt-a-bombs already do a shit ton of damage, but maybe if you even had like 20, 25 or something like that % extra equipment damage for like while you're in Cloak, because then even then it would at least incentivize, even if you didn't have a melt-a-bomb, you could just go into Cloak and instantly throw a grenade, and then that way you can like activate Purification. So then you could like go into Cloak, activate Purification, and then instead of like sitting in Cloak trying to line up a melee attack or a ranged attack and wasting charge, you could just instantly throw you know, press B, throw a grenade, and then that way you get rid of your Cloak immediately, and so that way you keep most of the charge. And then over here you would have Lingering Concealment, so that you'd get like 20% increased damage while you're hidden and for 2 seconds after, right? Like, do you guys see what I'm cooking here? Like, kind of like a build that incentivizes going into Cloak to activate Purification and then immediately getting out of it, and then, you know, having like a way to maneuver or something. I'm kind of like piecing together a little build here, and then maybe that would make it so that Squad Renewal isn't as useful, at least not for you, because you're going to be keeping up your Cloak for a pretty decent uptime anyways, because you're hardly using any charge at all, and so it'll just kind of recharge passively. And maybe that would give you more of an incentive to, like, if these got reworked, to maybe use one of them instead. So yeah, anyways, and then my message kind of stays the same for the prestige perks. We'll kind of lightly go over this. I think things like Emperor's Grace are really, really good. I think things like Material Upgrade are really, really bad. They should get rid of any stat increases. I think Conviction also doesn't belong here. Conviction should just go into the basic perk tree. I think Indomitable Spirit is decent here. I think Emperor's Grace is decent here. I think that's actually really it. I think all of these should just go into the perk tree somewhere. You know, if the perk tree got reworked, if they added more rows, if they added more, you know, things to kind of like become more versatile. These are all things that are like good. They're good options, but I think that they don't weigh enough to be warranted as a prestige perk. I think that they should just go in here somewhere as options so that you can optionally take it or take something else, and prestige perks should be locked to stuff that significantly alter the way that you play your ability. Or something like that, something along those lines. So we'll keep that short to that. If you want to hear me rant more about that, then you can go and check out the other videos. I've already talked a lot about it, so I'm kind of like, I'm not like sick of talking about it, but you guys get the gist. If you've watched any of these other videos and then you manage to hop your way over to this one, you've already heard it, you get the gist. The perk tree in general needs a big overhaul. It needs to have like signatures need to be majorly impactful. Some of them are, some of them aren't. I love Pattern of Excellence. I think it's ridiculously strong. It's easily like one of the best signatures here. The thing that sucks about it is that it doesn't have like anything really to do with your ability other than the fact that you can go cloak and then throw a grenade. But then there's no other perks that complement that. So this doesn't really like synergize a build. It just kind of is like, hey, here's a shit ton of grenades, and that's what makes it strong. So I don't know. Having it so that these significantly impacted the way that your ability worked would be a lot better, in my opinion. And then having these also kind of like work on the, like, augment the way you play. If this significantly alters the way that your ability works, as long as like a gear rework and these also significantly impacted the way that your ability worked, then these also probably don't make sense to have in the term of augmenting how your ability works. But these should complement how you play the sniper in some way, or like give you like new build synergies, like unlock a perk that all of a sudden makes purification not as useful. Maybe it is like, oh, well, you can like synergize that with so-and-so perk. Efficient readiness gives you even more movement speed or something like that, or like rewards you for like moving around the map, or like anything, literally anything, except for just giving the same perks that other classes have in the perk tree for free without prestiging. So I don't know. I think that's like the biggest gripe there for sure. It definitely needs some love and care. But for now, that is going to be the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you in another one where I don't know what stage you're in of watching. Like maybe you came here from the tactical and then now you're gonna backtrack over to Vanguard or something. I don't know where you are in this journey of watching these videos, if you are watching these videos. But next up, we're going to cover the heavy, and that'll be the last one that we do of this for now. So I appreciate you watching. Thank you for being here and hanging out with me, and we'll catch you in another video sometime soon. Goodbye.